Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sun Show. That's at the Loyal Suns on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever you get your social medias. Follow us here there for Pitt sports content you will not want to miss. If you love offensive coordinators too young to have served in Vietnam and hate having to recruit your own players again, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sun Show. A safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt Athletics fix, brought to you by Section 5. My name is David. I'm once again here with my wonderful co-hosts Squid and Dylan. Squid, Dylan, the Pitt Panthers have a new offensive coordinator. How do we feel?
I'm just glad it finally happened. There were rumors that it was only going to take a few days, but it took 2 weeks. So we were on the edge of our seats for a while, and we finally got an answer.
Yeah, I'm also very happy that a hire has been made. I think this is pretty important as we enter the portal season and recruiting guys. If we do want to bring a transfer quarterback in, I think they're probably going to want to know who their OC is. So I'm glad it was done, and we'll talk more about the hire, but I'm pretty happy with the direction they went.
Yeah, Pitt went and grabbed Western Carolina's Kade Bell. Western Carolina, for those of you who are not aware, is a SoCon team that stands for Southern Conference in the FCS level. They went down to the former Division I AA to get their guy. He was chosen over a coaching search that ranged from Georgia's Brandon Streeter, Georgia's, what's McClendon's first name?
Brian
McClendon, Mac Leftwich from NA was in there somehow. He coaches college football and apparently at a level that Pitt would consider him for an offensive coordinator job, which I guess is pretty cool. And former Penn State burnout Yurkic.
Yeah, I never got to the point of learning how to actually say his last name. I'm just glad we don't have to deal with the implosion on Twitter of dealing with Penn State fans saying we got their leftovers or something. So, dudes rang the bell.
I have to think that at least played somewhat of a role in Narduzzi's mind. Like, I'm going to go hire an OC that James Franklin just fired.
I mean, blind resumes, pretty good. Terrible PR.
Listen, I've had this argument with a couple people. I think him having been fired by Penn State in the last year is immediately disqualifying. I don't care if he's Eric Bieniemy. I don't care if he's Nick Saban's kid. The optics of that are disqualifyingly bad. And then also, the more you look into it, he underachieved with a bunch of 4 and 5 stars at Penn State. He had a 5-star quarterback, 2 1,000-yard rushers, the best receiving core that they could buy in the portal, who ended up sucking, and the best offensive tackle in football, and they could not produce on offense. And then his only other stint as an OC was at Texas, where he put up points, but they were still like a underachieving Texas team with all the talent in the world. So you expect this guy to come to Pitt, a place that famously, cuts its teeth and made its name turning 3 stars into NFL guys, and you think he's going to get the most out of those guys when he can't even develop 4 and 5 stars? Absolutely not. I would have rioted.
Stars don't matter, and would have been cool to say he came here and was the scapegoat for Drew Allar sucking and James Franklin being a control freak. But alas, we don't have to worry about that because we got our guy from an FCS school.
I do want to clarify one thing. Yurcich did have another stint as an OC, and he was the conductor of the Fuck It offense with Mason Rudolph and James Washington at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, but that doesn't support the point I was trying to make, so we're going to leave that one out.
Fair enough. We can cut that in post-production.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, they settle on Kade Bell. I think there is a handful of, or like a portion of the Pitt fan population that thinks this is them settling because they couldn't land any of the guys they really wanted. People who feel like this is below Pitt to go to the FCS level to make a hire. I don't really agree with that. I mean, if you want to go look at other guys who have made jumps, I mean, Yurcich, before he was at Oklahoma State, was the OC at Shippensburg in the PSAC. This isn't like a jump that can't be made. And I think, from our discussions offline and what we really wanted to see, we didn't want to just see another old dinosaur be plopped in to calling plays for this offense again. We don't want to see, a guy who's still running an offense that maybe worked in the early 2000s but doesn't work anymore, isn't modern. And Narduzzi actually went the complete opposite direction of what Narduzzi would typically do and what he's done in the past, and went and got a 30-year-old who had one of the most prolific offenses in all of college football, most prolific offense in the FCS, a guy who wants to play fast. And whether this works or not is yet to be seen. But I think as a Pitt fan, you have to at least admit that it's promising that Narduzzi didn't go hard-headed, find a guy who can whose teams like to run the football and just do the same thing, definition of insanity, et cetera, et cetera.
You could say that this year was so bad that it was good because in the grand scheme of things, Narduzzi adapted to what college football is going to look like in the 2020s. We're sick and tired of watching other college football games, the conference championship games, saying, wow, that looks absolutely nothing like the Pittsburgh Panthers. So you could say Kade Bell hasn't really proven himself. Doesn't have a whole lot to show outside of just being really, really good at Western Carolina. He had a couple other position coach stints, but by all accounts, schemes up a great offense, and they're also a big guy into recruiting. So you got a young, fiery guy, eager to prove himself. Is there a chance this completely flames out? Yeah. We could look back and be like, damn, weird how that guy from Western Carolina who had no play calling experience at the FBS level didn't do anything. But at the same time, could be a diamond in the rough. So I'm glad we swung for the fences.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all understand the fans who wanted like some young up-and-comer from Georgia. Like Brian McClendon, I think at first got everybody really excited because you're talking about, wow, this dude who's under 40, killing it at the best program in the country. That's the kind of hire we should make. Allegedly, he was just attaching his name to Pitt so that Georgia would add another zero to his paycheck or whatever they do down south. Didn't get that one, whatever. But you have to be encouraged by the change in strategy this represents. How many times have you, and Squid and Dylan, you specifically, how many times have you called Narduzzi stubborn in the last 3 months?
Lost track.
At least once or twice.
Probably a handful or more. So to see him go out, get a 30-year-old offensive coordinator from the FCS level with an innovative offense who uses the motto, play fast, score faster. Hell, he might not be the greatest coach ever, but to see the change in Narduzzi's approach, the fact that he can learn from his mistakes, and you know what? Fuck it. We aren't sitting on the ball. We aren't running out the clock. We aren't just keeping our defense off the field. We aren't playing early 2000s football. That he was willing to make a drastic change, a drastic departure from his normal way of doing things in an attempt to improve this program and right the ship. That has to be so encouraging. I do not give a shit if you think Kade Bell or a Western Carolina coach is beneath Pitt. That is so refreshing.
I don't think we're going to turn into like Oklahoma State or Baylor throwing it 55 times a game. It's going to be way different than last year. But by the numbers, I'm sure we've all seen that graphic going around of Kade Bell, who looks like he's 75 feet tall and walking on the football field.
Hit us with it, Squid.
Yeah, if you've seen it, you know. But if not, you're confused. By the numbers at Western Carolina, first in total offense, first in scoring, rushing, passing, first in passing efficiency, first in first downs, first in third down efficiency, first in the red zone. They broke the school record for yards and passing touchdowns. Those are all in the Southern Conference. But if you just watch a little bit of film, get in the film room, pull up YouTube, type in Western Carolina football and watch a few highlights, you'll see this looks like an Ohio State a little bit like what Alabama does when they spread dudes out. They're going to try to do that.
Squid, I did exactly what you're telling our listeners to do yesterday while I was bored. Not a lot of quarterback under center. This is a modern offense.
Yeah, I think when you watch what they're doing, for me, it was literally just I want to watch an offense that looks like a modern college football offense. And I understand the jump from FCS to ACC, but I mean, at the end of the day, I know there's differences that are involved. I know the level of athlete is different. There's a lot that goes into it with recruiting and scheming. But if you're calling plays, you're calling plays in my eyes. So if you know football and you really know the game and can scheme things up, I mean, I feel like, sure, they were playing against his Western Carolina teams were playing against maybe lesser competition, but he's also going to have better athletes now at his disposal. So I think that's exciting to say. What can he scheme up with a Gavin Bartholomew? He never had a guy like Gavin Bartholomew at Western Carolina. What can he do with a guy like Kenny
Neither
Johnson?
did Signetti.
Yeah, true.
At least in his own understanding.
What can he do with a Kade Bell, a Kenny Johnson, Rodney Hammond? Like, I just think it's super exciting to see what a young, innovative play caller might be willing to or able to scheme up with these type of athletes at his disposal.
I'm not going to sit here and act like an expert of the Southern Conference, but I'm like 99% sure that Western Carolina isn't like a powerhouse. So it's not like you have a big talent disparity. Like, oh, he's got all the best players, so you can do whatever you want and it'll just work. That's not the case. I think they're probably closer to the bottom in like the historical ranks against all those other teams. So
it took some innovation to get them out of the basement of the Southern Conference.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I could coach at Alabama with all those players and we could still go 8-4 at least. No, I think he knows what he's doing on offense. And I mean, I'm sure that he impressed Narduzzi in his interview coming in and saying, hey, we're going to do this. And Narduzzi's must have been impressive to make him change. I'm sure it wasn't easy, even after the year that they had and all the terrible, terrible displays of play calling, quarterback play, just general football. I'm glad we're going in a different direction, in a very different direction.
I'd have to think part of his interview process was Narduzzi being like, well, if you see this type of defense, how are you going to counter that? And Bell had some good answers for him. This hire is probably going to determine like how long Narduzzi is going to be Pitt's head coach. If it's a home run hire and Pitt's offense turns around, might be back looking at, Narduzzi finishes out his contract. Maybe there's another extension at the end of it. That's so far away, I don't even want to think about it. But if this goes bad, this very well could be, the beginning of the end for Pat Narduzzi at Pitt. So I think that's why everyone wanted this hire to happen quickly. Narduzzi could not take this hire lightly. He had to do his vetting, look at every possible option, have every conversation, and make sure that he was confident that he's getting it right.
I completely agree, Dylan. I think that had to have been in the back of his mind when he decided to swing for the fences for the first time in his coaching career. It seems like he's always played it conservative, close to the vest. I think he knows that how much he personally has, not just the program, he personally has riding on this decision. And, maybe it elevated a young hotshot up and comer over a guy who the fan base would have relished in the opportunity to turn on, like, you're sick, you're kick, you're chick, Mike from Penn State.
Who knows? Maybe 2 years from now, Kade Bell will be that next like hotshot up and comer that we're fending off for USC. Get into the ground floor. I like the move. Also, looking through Twitter, searching Kade Bell for like an hour yesterday. It looks like Florida was like kicking the tires on the Kade Bell
Sweepstakes.
Yeah, that's the word. I was gonna say car, but that's weird. So it's not like we grabbed this guy that nobody wanted. It seemed like Florida was interested. That's a big time job. Pitt was
Their fans
interested.
weren't too happy that we got him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it wasn't this year, I'm sure next year he would have taken a Power 5 job somewhere. We're not taking some young kid who doesn't know shit.
He is a Nepo baby. His only stint as an offensive coordinator, he was hired by his own father, but I can get over a little bit of nepotism if you're putting up 40 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
results are results.
I feel like that's almost every football coach. I mean, obviously not every football, but like how many coaches are the sons of coaches?
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, your buddy coached with my dad back in the 70s. You're the son of my buddy who I played with at New Hampshire.
I mean, how many of Tomlin's coordinators are his buddies?
And we know how that's going.
No, I'm excited about the hire. I really had myself excited at the rumors that Streeter and McClendon were both going to come here. But then I thought about it in 2 seconds and I was like, we don't have that much money. And also, why would they do that? They're both at Georgia. Streeter has been an OC before. McClendon has been an OC before. Streeter got chased out of Clemson. I don't know if that's much better than a guy getting chased out of Penn State.
Yeah, the Streeter one was a little bit, I don't know. I don't care who's at Georgia right now. But end of the day, I'm happy. Seems like some of the social media Panther fans aren't. I was surprised by how many people wanted Jurkic. I was like actually blown away. I thought everybody would be no. This guy's like poison. But give it a shot. It's different. And if he sucks, you'll be happy because he'll be gone soon, and probably so will Pat Narduzzi. So
kind of a win-win. He's either awesome and we're awesome, or he sucks and we're hitting the reset button in 2 years, which is what everyone's kind of calling for anyway.
Play fast, score faster.
he's a big hashtag guy.
Love a good hashtag.
I think he also threw in the Berg is jumping. I don't know what the backstory of that is, but sure. Let's do it. Bring in some transfers now.
To me, the most important thing is the player reaction has been positive. I've seen quite a few of the guys pretty excited about the addition, complimenting the hire. John Morgan even tuned in because they actually, Western Carolina and Arkansas played this year, and John Morgan, commented on the kind of style he plays, how hard they are to defend, even though Arkansas blew him out, obviously, and, complimented the hire. But it's really good to see after, I think, it's pretty clear the players were out on Signetti by the end of the year,
Yeah.
to see them excited about this guy. And I think we've started to see that in, the transfer portal or lack of transfer portal movement for this Pitt team.
So the last time we had a podcast, we took the week off last year. We wanted to wait until after the coaching search wound up because we didn't want to come on and say all kinds of stuff. Then it'd be irrelevant because they hired somebody different. But
And we're lazy. Also laziness.
we needed a bye week.
Yeah.
We had some events. But the last time we left off, we made a list of about a dozen guys that we can't lose these guys. These are guys that we must keep on the team. And everyone else, if they leave, it's a loss, maybe a little bit, but very replaceable. And like David said, did a pretty good job. I think there was only one person off of that list that did not come back, and that was Sammy O. Sammy Okunlola. Seems to have some pretty good offers, I'm sure. NIL had a factor in that, but
That one hurts.
we were in 3-9. We got to take our punches, and if it's only one big one, so be it.
Yeah, and the word on the street isn't that, Okunlola was disgruntled here. I think it was a chiefly financial decision, which I'm not going to fault the kid for going and getting a bag, especially when you have as much upside as he does. It just goes to show, keep donating to Alliance 412, who had a pretty good last couple weeks, and we're going to be able to keep these big names and add to the list. But what was really encouraging was, Kade Bell gets announced. Kenny Johnson through Alliance 412 announced that he'd be returning this year. And I don't know when we got to the point that players were making announcements that they were staying, but I'm not gonna shit on good news.
It's annoying because you're like, is this guy not announcing because he doesn't know if he's coming back, or does he not feel the need to? But it seems like everybody noteworthy that were the highest priority said they're coming back. So get used to it.
I mean, it's 2023. This is college football now. Everyone wants a nice graphic they can throw up on social media, get those likes and retweets and engagements. So I don't hate it. I like to see that we don't have to worry and sweat about, well, is Kenny Johnson still going to enter the portal in a few days? I don't even know. What's the deadline at this point? They have till the end of this month? There's 2 periods, and then, I don't know. It's too damn confusing, but
if you guys Google it if you really want to know.
Yeah, if you guys can fill about 10 seconds of dead air, I can find out.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny Johnson announcing coming back is huge. I know Pitt fans are worried about him going. I was always kind of skeptical of that. I know how much hype there is around Kenny within the Pitt sphere, and we know that he's a stud and is going to be really good, that he's next up, but I don't know how much of a market there was for a receiver who had 15 catches on a 3-9 team. I'm sure if he would have entered the portal, teams would have came looking. But if we're talking NIL and transfer and getting paid, maybe it pays off more for him to have a big year this year and then enter the portal next year. And I don't even want to get into that right now. But
yeah, good situation here.
January 2nd.
Okay, January 2nd.
And then there's that other window after spring ball, which is a lot less useful to the players because you missed all that opportunity to train with your new team.
You mean
the Jordan Addison?
The Jordan Addison period?
Period, yeah.
I wasn't going to say it, but I guess we had to go and hurt everyone's feelings again.
But aside from that, 2 more additions, or maybe just not subtractions. Brandon George back. Nate Temple back after dipping their toes in the portal.
Yeah, those were kind of funny to me. Just yeah, I'm going to put my name in the portal. Oh, I don't have any offers better than... I think Nate Temple had FAU, like Texas State, like very clear drop downs to Group of Five. And then Brandon George, I honestly didn't see anything about him tweeting out offers.
I would have expected Brandon George to have an offer or two that were pretty good, considering he announced very quickly after the season ended or the portal opened, whenever it was.
Which is usually an indication that there's been some light tampering, or to put it kinder, interest from other schools.
Yeah. So I was like, that one stings a little bit. We could use some linebackers. But, oh well. Nate Temple, I think we're all okay with searching for elsewhere, but them both being back, I think we can just chalk it up to good depth. We need people to play positions. George might be a little bit more impactful, a veteran in that soon-to-be young linebacker room. The ends, hopefully they get somebody else. We'll leave it at that.
Coach Partridge has some work to do on that end. We lost Okunlola. We lost Jules. We lost a couple guys to just being old as hell. They obviously don't trust Elliott Donald. They obviously don't trust Nakai Johnson. So is our defensive line next year going to be Dayon and Sean Fitzsimmons? Like, what's our plan? Not to get us on a whole other thing, but this is what I'm losing sleep over now.
I mean, it's got to be. Is that priority one in the portal right now? Defensive line?
I would argue if your quarterback situation isn't settled, your priority one in the portal is always quarterback. But that has to be a very close number two.
But have we expressed interest in anybody who we think could start for this football team next year? Don't tell me Kyle McCord. I know the football team followed him, or somebody followed somebody.
Oh, so he's basically a Panther already.
Let's not hold his breath. Was it kid from Holy Cross?
Yeah, Sluka.
Yeah,
I've heard rumors, but nothing I'd like go on the record about.
Yeah, maybe someone from like a bigger school.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. If they have to drop a bag on like another unproven quarterback, I'd rather they just use that money elsewhere and hope Yarnell or Veyer can figure it out. Probably Yarnell, because that's who they finished the season with. But I simply don't want to go through the same song and dance of paying some transfer quarterback a bunch of money. He stinks, but they feel tied to him because they paid him a bunch of money. And then, like, we've seen this story before. So unless they can go get a guy who's like been a starter somewhere else and is a little bit established, and I don't really know that that's going to be out there to convince the guy to, unless some guy falls in love with Kade Bell's offense and they can sell him on that. I'd really like to see that. We've seen, what the value is for quarterbacks in the portal. These guys get paid. And I would really prefer that if they're going to take a gamble and pay some guy who's not really proven or has proven that he's washed up and mediocre, to just use those funds elsewhere. With all that being said, I think they're going to bring in a quarterback.
Go for a young guy, someone that wouldn't have to start immediately. You don't have to start your transfer immediately. You can get a young guy and let him learn and not spend like 50% of Alliance 412's budget on him, I don't know. It is so difficult because, I mean, after what Michael Penix looked like his last year in Indiana, or how Bo Nix looked half the time at Auburn, who thought they'd be this? Jaden Daniels was chased out of Arizona State by his teammates. So it's just so hard to gauge.
Yeah. Evaluating quarterbacks is tough. It all depends on the situation and what happened, what they were doing, what kind of weapons they had, kind of coaching they had. So
We got Kade Bell, so we'll be all right.
any final thoughts on the portal?
Putting a lot of hope in Kade Bell. Apparently, he's a pretty decent recruiter.
A lot of
And
Florida guys on that Western Carolina team.
They
So.
Western Carolina also a couple pretty nice athletes entered the portal. Would hate for them to follow their old ball coach up to Pittsburgh. At least be depth pieces. Maybe push to be starters. I do not know the drop off in ability.
I think the top one was Sincere Lee, the receiver there. He was Western Carolina's leading receiver.
That's his name.
Yeah.
Sincerely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I honestly didn't put that together until you mentioned it. all name team. Let's get him here. Let him run go routes on Acrissure's grass. Sincerely, the Loyal Sons.
We all know someone who's trying to figure out the next steps in their life. They're looking for something new, or maybe just a break. There's a job opportunity here in Pittsburgh for those looking to make a change that requires no experience and starts at $19.50 an hour, plus weekly bonuses, 401k, and healthcare benefits. Whether someone you know is in between jobs, transitioning careers, or even a recent grad or current student on break, Haddad Accelerated Delivery is an Amazon delivery partner that offers flexible opportunities to those looking for work. Whether it's part-time or full-time, long-term, or just until you figure out your next big move, Haddad Accelerated Delivery offers the stability and professional development you need. If you know someone who might benefit from talking to the team at Haddad, have them text HAD to 464646 to apply. That's HAD to 464646 to apply.
Pitt basketball team is riding a 2-game winning streak, and since we last discussed this team, there were a couple losses too, but we're just not going to talk about those because they were a long time ago, and we don't feel like it. But going back to last week, the Pitt Basketball Panthers went down to Morgantown and got a win in the backyard basketball brawl. First in 7 tries for the Pitt basketball program. I think we had lost 6 straight to the Mountaineers. So much needed. And obviously the main headline is Pitt beats West Virginia, but 1A, 1B here would have to be Blake Hinson just had the most Blake Hinson game of all time. 29 points, sets a program record, breaking his own program record, hitting 9 threes in the game. And they weren't just catch and shoot 3-pointers in the corner. Like, he was hitting threes from the logo would be an understatement. He was a couple steps over half court catching this ball and chucking it. Just a huge win for a team that needed one very badly, coming off of 2 straight losses. And Blake Hinson is heating up and becoming the player that we all pretty much expected he was going to be this year when he decided to come back for one more season. Squid, David, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was using my calculator for a second. In his last 4 games, Blake Hinson has scored 22, 27, 29, and 26, and he is shooting 49% from 3. And he's shooting a lot of threes.
Is that bad?
No. Those are both extraordinary. And it makes you wonder, what would this team be if Blake Hinson decided to test the NBA waters? So every time you see Blake Hinson, tell him thank you for coming back because, oh my gosh, this guy is unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, he's just shooting the ball at an unbelievable level right now.
I mean, if you watch the Canisius game, I was coming off of an absurdly crazy game at Morgantown where he was shooting deep threes after deep threes. Guys in his face, doesn't matter. Kevin Durant even commented on it saying, dude must have been cooking if he's getting compared to me. Against Canisius, he's getting to the rim. He's driving by guys. So he's just scoring at an absurd level right now. One that we haven't seen. I think I saw Pitt's last 20-point per game scorer was Brandon Shorter in the 80s.
Yeah, watching in the beginning of the season, I couldn't help but notice that the offense wasn't being run through him, and I kind of felt like that's the logical thing to do. You have a bunch of big bodies to rebound, you have a very good freshman guard, and you use that as an infrastructure to just keep feeding Blake Hinson so he can score 30 points a game and shoot from wherever he wants. So we hit a rough patch. We aren't going to talk about it. Hopefully they've kind of found their groove going forward, and it's letting Blake do whatever the hell he wants.
It was interesting because they blew the brakes off of West Virginia in the second half. It was an absolute curb stomping. And then we were really happy. We looked amazing. We forgot about those 2 losses. You just step back and you look at it, and West Virginia, not all that good. But it's a rivalry game on the road. We're not going to cry about a big win against a rival. Canisius comes to town, and by our favorite rating, the net rating, this is now our best win. And they gave us some trouble for a half. But for whatever reason, you could say it's because they played 3 games in a week. It could just be a general struggles with the team. Took a while to get going, but once again, they figured it out. Blake Hinson, shocker, big part of it.
Yeah, I think Blake is hitting his groove is huge for this team. I think these guys figuring out what everyone's roles are, because I do think it has felt like at times after the initial Bub Carrington hype that I know, like, Pitt fans, it's like, oh, we have this kid who's going to be a one and done. He's actually going to be our best player. And Blake Hinson had to kind of remind everyone, like, yeah, the youngin's good, but this team is they're going to go as I go. And he showed that. And I think Bub setting him up and being the complimentary table setter for Blake Hinson is really how this team should operate. And everyone's going to kind of figure that out. And I don't think that feeling ever changed probably within the team. I think everyone, Blake Hinson's accomplishments are well recorded, and he is the leader in that locker room. And Coach Capel's talked about it. Our buddy George Michalowski, he just put out a really great article. If you haven't seen it yet, go give it a look. But just kind of talking about how Blake has stepped up as a leader this season for this team. So everyone knows it's his team. That's how it should stay. Blake has the ultimate green light, and then all these guys kind of just have to fill in around him.
Talk about finding out the rotations. I think Capel's doing a little bit of that on the fly now. We've seen some different combinations, and unfortunately, disclaimer, we're going to talk about some bad things now. Fetty hasn't looked all that great this year, and we're trying some new things out because of it.
Yeah, what do you guys think is going on there? Because you don't need a PhD in hoops to see that he is having a abysmal time on both sides of the court.
He'll have these spurts where he looks like his old self, but overall, the defense isn't what it was. I mean, the rebounding totals are real low. I mean, they've resorted to going with Jefferson a twin over Fetty for long periods of time, and you don't love to see that, but it worked against Canisius. So I think Capel's really trying to dig deep in the bag and see, like, whenever this is happening, whenever Fetty's off, what can we do to make up for that? Like, what are the other buttons I can push to get bigger guys on the floor?
I think I'm firmly now in the camp, and I really didn't think I'd ever get here, that Jeffers needs to be a starter. I understand that the offensive production has been a letdown, that you expect any semblance of offensive production from a guy as highly recruited as he was out of high school. But he's just been so much better on defense and on the boards than Fetty and the Twins lately. And I think Blake Hinson will gladly eat Jeffress's slice of the pie when it comes to putting shots. That wasn't a fat joke. When it comes to putting up shots, like I think Hinson will gladly absorb, Jeffers' share, and Jeffers can just, I don't know, screen, pick and roll, whatever.
Well, Will Jeffers is 2 for 2 from 3 against Canisius. If they can start
Steady.
getting some shots from him, I don't have a ton of faith. He just hasn't been a consistent shooter since he's been at Pitt. But if he can even be like a low 30 percentile type of 3-point guy off the catch and shoot, I mean, that would be huge for this team. That give them another guy who can knock down threes. And like we said, like his defensively and on the boards, he's just been super effective for them. Super glue guy type of performances for him. And I mean, Federico, Jorge, and Guillermo combined for a whopping 3 rebounds in, quick math here, 54 minutes of play against Canisius. There's like 21 feet of person between the 3 of them, and they only managed 3 rebounds against a solid but lower level Division I team.
I'm not going to go out and say I think Will Jeffers should start. If we're in that camp, we've got some problems on offense. I'm still hopeful Zach Austin can find his role on offense soon. He hasn't really scored in the last 2 games. He barely even played last game. But I like Will Jeffers off the bench. And if he plays well in the first couple times he gets in, I'm all for giving him 15, 20 minutes because someone's got to be out there. And apparently we can't trust Fetty and the Twins for the whole game. It's funny, though. It seems like every game Jorge or Guillermo steps up and plays really well. You just don't know who's going to have their day that day until it happens. So we'd love to get some more consistency out of the bigs. Not writing off Fetty, but we got to see more. And we need to see more because the ACC play is coming up and some big dudes coming. Who's going to guard Filipowski? Who's going to guard Baycott? I mean, Clemson gave us hell down low. So
I forgot Baycott was still in college. That's so funny.
Fetty did good against Baycott both times they played last year. So I don't know. If you guys remember last year, like I feel like what Fetty's doing now is kind of what he looked like early in the season last year, but everyone had the bar set so low for expectations for him that everyone's like, oh yeah, like if he can give us 5 points and not completely kill us defensively, although he has kind of struggled on that end so far, but he got better as the season went on, and I think everyone just assumed that where he finished off last season is maybe where he would start this season. Maybe it'll just take a month or two for Fetty to get going. I'm really hoping that's the case because the best version of this team, I do think, is a team where Fetty's productive, rebounding, blocking shots, catching lobs. They need production from Fetty because I love the Twins, and I think Guillermo has shown some really good flashes. But I think that they're still showing that they're struggling to guard some of the bigger, more physical guys at the collegiate level.
Yeah, definitely the case for the Twins. And I'll say this in Fetty's defense. I think overall this team's defense has been pretty bad. There's a lot of times they're just kind of running around. They're like,
feels like
I don't know, they're not communicating or it's just step late here, step late there. And it's like, well, Fetty, you got to try to bail us out here. And it's not working. He's been put in tough spots.
Yep.
The problem is the struggles on defense are showing up on the offensive end. He's taking some goofy shots. He's letting passes and lob slipped through his fingers. So just focus on defense for now, Fetty. I think, and the Canisius was nice because he got a lob from Leggett on a couple rolls. They fed it to him and he kicked it out for a 3. So we're still seeing bits and pieces of old Fetty. Just got to see it for a full game.
Yeah, don't give up on him yet. We got a few more non-conference games for him to figure things out. If he can figure things out, I'll feel a lot better. If Zach Austin can figure things out, I'll feel a lot better. Zach Austin's shooting 21% from 3 this season. He wasn't exactly a sharpshooter at High Point. It was right around the 32, 33% mark. But I would hope that he can kind of get back to that level at least, because right now the lack of production from those wings is really hurting this team.
Lucky for us, have a bit of I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Play South Carolina State the 16th, have a week off, recover, regroup. And then after South Carolina State, they have Purdue Fort Wayne, who might be kind of formidable.
10-1. Don't really have any super impressive wins, but they are 10-1, so that counts for something.
But definitely a good time for that, because after Purdue Fort Wayne, we got Syracuse, UNC back to back, end of December, early January. So now's the time. Iron it out. Zach Austin, Will Jeffress, 1,000 threes a day, and we'll be good.
And practice your foul shots.
Hear that, Coach Capel?
Santa.
You ever think of that?
Santa, our wish list. Zach Austin and Will Jeffress start hitting threes. The entire team start hitting free throws.
It's not much of a secret that I have a home field apparel problem. Even before we started this show, I couldn't even step foot on a new college campus without making sure there was something from that school's home field collection waiting on my porch when I got home. So we are, understandably, over the moon to partner with Home Field this season to keep Pitt fans comfy, cozy, and stylish at a fraction of the price by using promo code LOYALSONS for 15% off your next order. This discount applies site-wide and with unique vintage collections for every school from Pitt to Bama, Jackson State to Colgate, Michigan, Marshall, Marquette, and both Miamis. There's something for every fan. So whether you're buying for a Pitt fan or for a loser freak, use promo code LOYALSONS at homefieldapparel.com to save big on your next order. Each code applies once per email address, so get those work emails and burners ready. That's homefieldapparel.com. Final thoughts are back, and they are brought to you by Gurrera Law. Squid, what is the best and worst thing that happened to you this week?
Ooh, the best. I will allude to my final thought, which is a big final thought, going to the Pitt Volleyball match and watching them win. So that was very good. The worst, I will allude to another final thought that we have. Waking up like horrendously hungover on Sunday at like 12:30 because of a party that we had, which was a great party. But
in celebration of a thing.
Yeah. So
yeah.
That, but those are my things.
Well, Squid, life is full of Elite Eight victories as well as it is full of, praying to the porcelain god, puking at 7 a.m. And while you can't sue, like, the local liquor distillery, let's say hypothetically you're driving down Bigelow Boulevard and you get rear-ended and you're suffering because of your injuries. Maybe some local law firms aren't really taking you seriously and you're having trouble with your insurance company. This is when you need to pick up the phone and call Guido Gurrera. If you find yourself in a situation where you need help, call Guido. He will help turn your losses into an Elite Eight reverse sweep of the Louisville Cardinals. You can reach Guido at 412-229-7757 or GurreraLaw.com, GurreraLaw.com. He is licensed in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So, final thoughts. Dylan, would you like to lead us off?
I sure can. The party referenced in Squid's earlier alluding.
Yeah.
He talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
It was a party to celebrate me. I got engaged on Saturday night. I am now an engaged man. Proposed my beautiful fiance, and then was able to celebrate with a bunch of friends after. So I have great friends, great woman, and very, very excited about it. So thanks for everyone who celebrated with me. A few of you guys listen to this.
Congratulations. We're very excited for you and Natalie. The ring is beautiful. The setup was beautiful. You did it. Mount Washington, city in the backdrop, a true loyal son.
During the Pitt Canisius game, though, and didn't look at the schedule whenever you planned this months ago.
Yeah, but to Dylan's credit, Dylan, what was the first thing you asked after you were mobbed walking into our buddy's apartment?
So, yeah, I said, did Pitt lose to Canisius? Because at one point while we were at dinner, I checked. I got a notification. It was like Pitt was down 41-40 at half. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. And I'm already nervous. I'm like, I'm about to make huge proposal outside. And so my chest is already tight. And then on top of it, I have to worry about Pitt losing to a low major. But I pulled out my phone as everyone was mobbing Natalie. And then I checked and saw that we won by 11. I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, this. I mean, I figured I would check then because it's like, now if it's like bad, it's like, okay, it's fine. Just had like one of the best moments of your life 5 minutes ago.
Priorities, yeah.
It's a good time to stomach like a Pitt loss. You'd be like, fuck, it doesn't matter. But I'm not going to lie, a bit of a weight off my shoulders when I saw they won.
So now Squid is the only unbetrothed loyal son.
Yeah, Willie Dunn really stopped talking to me after Pitt was disqualified from bowl eligibility. Apparently, it's a big deal to her, and she won't go out with dudes who podcast for schools that can't even get to the Quick Lane Bowl. So, on the market.
Our popularity is completely dependent on the success of Pitt sports. But Squid, there's got to be, we have thousands of listeners. There's got to be upwards of like a half dozen age-appropriate women that listen to this show. There's like, we got to send out the bat signal or something. The Squid signal.
Yeah. We'll look into it. We'll look into the functionality of the light on top of the cathedral and see if we can get a outline of my face.
Squid, you want to go ahead? Or was your final thought to hit you up?
No. I wanted to say Natalie is a loyal daughter. She's been through thick and thin as a Pitt fan, in addition to the girlfriend of Dylan. So happy to have her in the podcast family. My final thought, I got a ticket to the Pitt volleyball match on Saturday. So that was quite something. It's tough to rank the best sporting events you've been at because there's so many crazy ones when you think of like all the magical Pitt games. I'm just gonna say that's up there. It was to the brim, packed in the fits, dramatic fashion, most hated rival. Whenever Cat was on earlier this year, we talked about like basically fuck Louisville. The two top dogs in the ACC, and they always seem to find each other in the most critical moments. And they got revenge from last year's tournament run. Third straight Final Four.
How do you feel about the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, like as a venue? Like, is it loud in there?
Oh, extremely. It was nuts. It was like 100 degrees though, So I'm looking forward to Victory Heights for that reason, because I'm assuming they'll have some better circulation in there. I was sweating before the match even started, but oh my gosh, yeah, it was sweet. It's like just big enough to where it's not like small and lame, but it's not too big to where the sound escapes, if that makes sense.
It's an intimate venue.
Yeah.
That's what we'll go with.
Yeah,
No,
I
I
mean,
mean-
sorry, I was gonna say finishing, like the way it finished was so poetic, just slamming it directly into that girl's dome, like just headshot, kill shot for the trip to the Final Four. Like that was so badass.
I mean, that was the deciding point. It was obviously electric. There was a point in, what was it? I think it was the fourth set. Olivia Babcock I don't think she got a serve in play for the first three. And in the fourth, she had like 3 aces in a matter of 4 points. And that was the point whenever everyone knew this is over. Like, we got to get 10 more points this set. We got to win the fifth still, but this is over. The momentum, the fans. I think Kat just had an ace earlier, and everyone's like, yeah, we figured it out. This is happening. We're pulling it off.
So we're back to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
And that means this weekend we are facing off against the number 1 team in the country, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, I'm not, a veteran of college volleyball, but isn't this volleyball Alabama essentially?
Yes. Nebraska and Wisconsin are Alabama and Georgia, essentially.
I mean, didn't they play a game in front of like 80,000 people earlier this year?
Yeah, they sold out their football stadium for a volleyball game, which is insane.
Pitt can't even sell it out for a football game.
Oh my God! What if we get attendance stated by Nebraska fans for the whole next week?
I mean, they're Nebraska. Are they good at anything besides volleyball? I mean, wrestling probably.
Corn.
Yeah, they do corn.
They do corn.
Good for them.
Good luck to the women's volleyball team. My final thought. So this weekend, Jane Daniels was announced the Heisman winner, and I don't know how to feel about it. Like, there's a huge part of me that's like, yeah, you shouldn't just be the best player on the best team to automatically win the Heisman. That's how you get a bunch of shitty Heisman winners like Jason White. Actually, specifically like Jason White. Or, honestly, Archie Griffin the second time around. Or, I mean, you can name a million. Bryce Young over Kenny Pickett. Just be the best player on the best team. No, it should be the best, most impactful player in the country. But on the other hand, like, it's kind of weird that we have a Heisman winner that didn't have like a Heisman moment or like a headlining victory. I mean, they beat Missouri, but it was halfway through the season or early in the season when we didn't know Missouri was any good. So Jane Daniels is awesome, but I don't know how I feel about him winning the Heisman over a guy like Michael Penix, who went out every week and beat a ranked team every week and made Washington undefeated. And also I had money on Michael Penix, so that might contribute to that a little bit. I don't know. How should I feel about this?
I think this is one of the lamer Heisman winners we've had. Not that his numbers are unbelievable. I'll be honest. Like, I didn't realize how good his numbers were until there was like 2 weeks left, and everyone's like, well, Jayden Daniels is going to win the Heisman. I'm like, really? And then I looked at his numbers. I'm like, wow, yeah, he's had a hell of a year. But I don't like that. Like, historically, the Heisman's like a narrative-driven award.
Right.
It's honestly, I've grown to hate the Heisman ever since the Kenny Pickett season. But yeah, I just felt like this was like, oh, Jaden Daniels is going to win it despite like you said, not really having a Heisman moment, not having any signature win that you can point to and be like, this is the game he won it. But honestly, I thought Caleb Williams winning it last year was kind of lame too. So I'm pretty much over the Heisman. I hate that I've got to this point because as a college football fan, this is like the award. But I think Heisman voting and the race to win it has gotten honestly just kind of insufferable, and I don't know, it doesn't have the same prestige that it once did for me.
Do you think that's because the award has changed, or do you think it's just because like we've grown up and the sheen has dulled and we now know too much about the process? Because I mean, if you go back, the award was first given out it was either 1926 or 1929. Always get those 2 years confused. You know how it is. And from then until like O.J. Simpson won it, it was, are you the best player on either Army, Navy, or Notre Dame? Paul Hornung won the Heisman Trophy in 1950 for a 4-8 Notre Dame team. He threw 4 touchdowns to, I think, 16 or 20 picks. So this award has never gone to the best or most impactful player in college football. And when it does, it's a rarity. When it goes deservedly to like Joe Burrow or Reggie Bush, who, now that I say that, doesn't have his Heisman Trophy anymore, so kind of a moot point. Like it's always been deeply flawed, but it's just like, I don't know. It's the most prestigious award in American sports, individual.
I think it's one of those weird years. It'll be a year that you forget. It's like, oh yeah, who won it that year? Oh yeah, it was Jaden Daniels. Like everyone's gonna remember Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston was insane, Reggie Bush, like
Lamar
was a big one. So I think it was a year. Daniels, yes, the numbers, you can say all those tweets. He had more yards and touchdowns than Kyler Murray did when he won it in like 3 less games or something absurd. But he didn't beat anybody. I'd like to see somebody beat somebody, take your team to new heights, or at the very least do something insane. Like whenever RG3 won it, he had a couple like heroic circus plays. He took Baylor, a team that historically really hasn't done a whole lot, to like relevance. So it'll be one of those years we forget, and I don't think anybody else should have won.
Yeah, I mean, no one's throwing parades for a kid who takes LSU to 9-3 when they were a preseason top 5.
Also, it seems like the hype around it kind of dulls it down, because already we've seen Heisman lists for next year. Who's going to win it next year? And if you're at that number 1 spot, you're probably not going to win because the hype is too high and you can't surpass it.
Yes.
Caleb Williams was a shoo-in this year. Couldn't live up to that hype. It's every year.
Also, they will almost refuse to vote for someone to win a Heisman twice in a row out of some unearned respect for Archie Griffin. Do you know how many touchdowns Archie Griffin had the year he won his second Heisman?
4.
A lot less than Tony Dorsett.
4. He had 4. Tony Dorsett had 100 more yards, a full more yard per carry, and I think a dozen more touchdowns. It's a narrative-driven award. They gifted him a second Heisman in a row and have now very much made it so that no one else can win a second one. It's weird. It's got weird rules, but goddamn do I love it. It's like everything in college football. It's so stupid. It makes no sense. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. It's a cool award. It's cooler when the guy who wins it does cooler things, but congrats to Jaden Daniels. Hell of a year. Super impressive. Just kind of lame by Heisman standards.
He had almost half of his touchdowns against Grambling State, Georgia State, and Army. Brian Kelly kept the foot on the gas, like Kade Bell will this year for Pitt.
Brian Kelly, man's a killer.
Heard that.
All right. With that, we'll wrap up here. Thank you all for listening. Remember, Kade Bell's in town. We're going to play fast and score faster. As always, hail, loyal sons of Pittsburgh.